For those of you who may not readily recognize me, I am Clement Clark Moore. I am the author of A Visit from St. Nicholas, and I've been asked to come here tonight and read that for you. But before I do, I hope you'd indulge me just a little bit to give you a couple of things you might be interested in. At the time I wrote this story, I was a lifelong resident of the city of New York. I had been born there during the Revolutionary War. My parents were Bishop Benjamin Moore and Charity Clark. Now, I would remain a resident of that great city until I died during another war. I died on July 10th, 1863, 1 week after the North defeated the South at the Battle of Gettysburg. I brought up my parents because you might recognize my father. He became the head of the Episcopal Church during the Revolutionary War, when the loyalists in charge of the church ran to Canada and the church broke its English roots. Or maybe you remember him because he was the president of a school you now call Columbia University. My mother was the daughter of Major Thomas Clark, an English officer who stayed in the colony after fighting during the French and Indian War. He owned a large Manhattan farm, probably called an estate, in the country just north of the city of New York. It was known as Chelsea. That's the name of the farm. In 1820, I gave 66 tracts of that land, the apple orchard, that I had inherited to the Episcopal Diocese of New York to be site of the General Theological Seminary, which is still there today, I was pleased to find out. I was subsequently appointed as professor of that biblical learning seminar, or learning at that seminary. I held that post in 1850. After the seminary was built, I began the residential development of my Chelsea estate. And in the 1820s, I divided it into lots along 9th Avenue and selling them to well-heeled New Yorkers. There were covenants in the deeds, creating a planned neighborhood, specifying what could be built on the land, as well as architectural details of the buildings. Stables, manufacturing, and commercial uses were forbidden. I earned great wealth by doing this. And I am told that Chelsea is still a vibrant, healthy, and upscale part of the city of New York. Now, A Visit from St. Nicholas, the title of the poem, many of you know it as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," was composed by me on a snowy winter's day during a shopping trip while riding on a sleigh during a visit with my cousin Mary McVicker. And like many authors of children's books in history, I wrote it for my children. I never intended that it would be published. My inspiration for the character of St. Nicholas was a local Dutch handyman, as well as the historical St. Nicholas, both of whom had a reputation for secret gift giving, such as putting coins in the shoes of those who left them out. I readily admit that I took liberties in describing the physical attributes of St. Nick. And I was pleasantly surprised to discover, in talking with my friend Judge Lowe, that my description of him remains the most common image held by people today. I acknowledge that some of this credit must go to an illustrator by the name of Thomas Nast, who apparently drew Santa in the 1880s. And he drew him according to the way I described him. I also admit that I borrowed aspects of the poem and story from others, such as the use of reindeer from an illustrated children's poem published in New York in 1821. The author is unknown, but the book is called Old Santa Claus with Much Delight. I have not found a copy of it. The poem was first published anonymously in the Sentinel, a newspaper in Troy, New York, on 23rd December 1823, having been sent there by a friend and family member of mine without my knowledge, the Reverend David Butler. It was reprinted frequently thereafter, and no name was attached. As I said, it was not my original intent to publish the poem beyond my children I did not wish to be connected with the verse given my public reputation as a professor of ancient languages. In 1837, the poem was printed in a book of poetry and attributed to me by yet another friend, Charles Fino Hoffman. And then in 1844, I included it in my anthology as one of my poetic works. I did this at the encouragement of my children. I was flattered when Judge Lowe advised me that it has been said, albeit in something called an encyclopedia entitled Wikipedia, found in something called the Internet, that my visit from St. Nicholas is arguably the best known verses ever written by an American poet. He tells me that it had a massive impact on the history of Christmas gift giving. You may not realize that the gift giving that all of you participate in today was relatively obscure at that time. Before the poem gained wide popularity, American ideas had varied considerably about St. Nicholas and other Christmastide visitors. In fact, this is why I portrayed my jolly old elf as arriving on Christmas Eve rather than Christmas Day. This was a political consideration. At the time I wrote the poem, Christmas Day was overtaking New Year's Day as the preferred genteel family holiday of the season. But not without great controversy, as the Protestants and the Catholics could not agree on the concept. By having St. Nicholas arrive the night before, I shifted the focus away from Christmas Day and the debate that came with it and all the problems with religious associations. And as a result, New Yorkers embraced my child-centered version of Christmas as if they've been doing it all their lives. And Judge Lowe explains to me that most of you have been doing it all your lives. And now, could I hand that to you? Thank you. A visit from St. Nicholas. 'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I and my cat had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to the objects below. When what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With the little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen. On Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As leaves that before the wild hurricane fly when they meet with an obstacle and mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke had encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know that I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, Happy Christmas to all, and to all a good night. Thank you.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, la 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 la. 'Tis the season to be jolly, la 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 la. Don we now our gay apparel, la 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 la. Throw the ancient Yuletide carol, la 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 la. See the blazing Yule before us, la 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 la. Strike the harp and join the chorus, la 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 la. Follow me in merry measure, la 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 la. While I tell of Yuletide treasure, la 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 la. Fast away the old year passes, la 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 la. Hail the new year, lads and lasses, la 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 la. Sing we joyous all together, la 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 la. Heedless of the wind and weather, la 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 la. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild. Sleep in heavenly peace. Sleep in heavenly peace. Go to the next one. Of all trees that are in the wood, the holly bears the crown. Oh, the rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir. The holly bears have blossomed as white as any flower, and Mary bore sweet Jesus Christ to be our dear Savior. Oh, the rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir. The holly bears of Mary as red as any blood, and Mary bore sweet Jesus Christ to do for sinners good. Oh, the rising of the sun and the running of the deer, the playing of the merry organ, sweet singing in the choir. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Glad tidings we bring to you and your kin. Glad tidings for Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a